kindly allow me to quickly jump on the introduction of our next mentor, who would give us a brief talk about research excellence. Allow me to share my screen to make a proper introduction, please. This will just take a second. Here we go. The full screen is not working. Please, I'm bringing on board Mrs. Eunice Akuru. She is an advanced PhD researcher at the Department of Livestock and Pasture Science, University of Fort Hare, South Africa. And she's also a lecturer at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka Department of Animal Science. And she was also an award-winning graduate in her class as the best graduating student, and I've enjoyed several funding opportunities. And she has been making efforts to sensitize postgraduate students with relevant and current tips on all her social media platforms. And she's also happily married. Please permit me to pass on the mic to, I would want to say Dr. Mrs. Eunice Akuru, because she's just a step away from clinching the PhD. Thank you very much, Mike. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, sir, for that introduction. Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to have all of you honor our invitation. So like Mr. Emmanuel Eze rightly said, I am going to be talking on the research aspect of this discourse. So happy listening. I just want to quickly share my slide. Can you confirm that you can see my slide?
Yes, I can see it, but if you can, you could put it in presentation mode so that it will be bigger.
I have done that. Is it reflecting?
Not yet. Can you press the button F5 on the keyboard? Let's see if that works. I think it's trying to respond. Okay, there's another button you can use. Let's just do, yes, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you so much, every one of you, for coming for the Mentors Moonlight Chat. So I'll be talking to you on essential tips for research excellence. And as you have been told, I am Eunice Akuru. So this is my presentation outline. So I understand that participants are from various fields of study. So I will try to look at research from a general perspective. So what is research? Research is defined as a systematic and structured process of discovering something new or adding to an existing body of knowledge. So whenever an attempt is made to new or to make substantial contribution to a knowledge that is already in existence, and such is done systematically and in a structured way, then we can say that research is being conducted. So in every research, regardless of the field of study, there are major highlights. There are things to look out for that will characterize it. It doesn't matter if you're in the natural sciences or you are in the social sciences. Your research should have this component. The beginning of a research is when a problem is identified. A researcher identifies a problem that requires a solution. And then after identifying that problem, he formulates an argument around that problem. That is the hypothesis of the study. And after doing that, he doesn't just run with that. He needs to look at the literature to see what other researchers have done. So in essence, he's trying to find out, am I the first person that is doing this? Are there other people before me that have done something similar to what I'm trying to do? And if there are, what did they come up with? What solutions did they prefer? You understand? So these are, in essence, what the researcher is trying to do is to find out the gaps, what have been done and what is yet to be done. So that is the literature review aspect of that. Then when that has been done, then there is the need to now look at the possible methods that you will use to verify that argument. You make attempts to look at the possible method you use to verify that argument. That is the design and methodology phase of your study. And then when you've done that as a researcher, you need to apply that verified approach to the problem or to the arguments that you have formulated. And that's the data collection phase. And when data has been collected, it needs to be analyzed. They need to be analyzed and interpreted. And the results that you came up with in the field, you need to analyze from the process of analyzing and interpreting your data. You need to discuss them using existing literature and give justification as to why you arrived at a particular result. And then when you've done that, you need to now draw conclusions based on what you found and make necessary recommendations. So every form of research that is done in whatever field encompasses this major highlight that I have indicated. So let's say, for instance, a researcher, maybe at graduate level, comes up with a problem that says, okay, female graduate students that are married tend to stay longer in graduate school as opposed to their male counterparts. And then the researcher now makes an argument that perhaps the reason why this happens is because the female researcher is faced with a lot of challenges that could include maybe having to bear extra burden at home, handling family responsibilities, and they do that more than their male counterpart. That is an argument. But then the researcher cannot make conclusions or make recommendations if he does not go to the field to interact with the target population. He needs to go to the field, interact with the males, the female graduate students, and then collect necessary data, analyze those data collected, interpret them, and then at that point, it becomes easy to draw whatever conclusion and then make recommendation. So as research, it's very important for me to state that research does not start and end with you as a researcher. Whether you are an undergraduate or a master's student or a doctoral student, research does not start and end with you. People have been doing research before you came on board, and more people will continue to do research after you're gone from, excuse me, after you're done with yours. So do not attempt to be over ambitious. There must be a scope to your research work. You must define the scope of your study. You cannot do everything. That is basically what I'm trying to say. You must define the scope of your study. It must be clearly defined. And then you look at the practicality of what you want to do. Is it achievable? What the study I want to conduct, is it possible to do it considering the resources that are available to me? If you're a researcher in Africa or whatever parts of the world, you must be aware of the challenges that are peculiar to your environment. So whatever you decide to do, you should look at it from this angle, that is it possible to do this research considering the resources that I have available? Otherwise, you look at what is possible and what is achievable. And then will there be constraints in terms of restricted access? That is the people that I need to administer my questionnaire to if you're doing a survey, or the facility that I need to conduct my experiments. Am I going to have challenges assessing those things? If I'm doing an intervention study, the schools where I need to get the pupils or the student to use, are they going to be freely available to me? So these are very important questions. So what I've said basically is that your research scope should be clearly defined. And at undergraduate level, basically students are introduced to basic concepts of research. At master's level, you're expected to gain mastery of research techniques, and at PhD, that is where the issue of novelty comes in. So these are the things that will guide the scope of your research. So quickly we'll go to framework for research planning. Before you go to the field, there are very important questions that you need to ask yourself, like the pre-preparation phase before your actual data collection. So like in South Africa, where I am at the moment, the issue of ethics is taken very seriously for those of us in the natural sciences. So if you are a student that you're in the natural sciences, and then you are studying in a country where ethics is considered very important, and in fact, it doesn't matter how many years you've done your study, if it is discovered that you went ahead to collect data without getting your ethical clearance, you will be denied that degree. So it's as serious as that. So there are very important questions that you need to ask yourself. These are the initial considerations or initial decisions before the actual data collection. This will help you to set boundaries or to know the constraints that are there on your research. So are there ethical requirements? How long is it going to take for me to get my ethical clearance and all of that? What are the at this point, you're looking at the broad aim and objectives of your research. Who is the research being done for? Like I remember when I was doing my master's study at Stellenbosch University, when I went there as an exchange student, yes, I was going to end my master's degree from doing that research, but I was actually doing the research, the experiment for a company. So the data belonged to them, though at the end of the day, I will benefit by obtaining my degree. So who is the research being done for? And who are the target audiences for the research? And then you look at the time factor. How long am I going to be on this program? How long am I going to be? Am I on funding? Are you on funding as a student, as a graduate student? How many years are you being funded? So these are very important questions that will guide you to know what to come up with. And then collaborators, this should be discussed from the very onset. Is it just you that is doing everything, or just you and your supervisor, or there are other people on board? So everybody's role needs to be defined from the onset to avoid issues at the end of the day, especially when you do a kind of research that you end up gaining a patent, or you come up with a spectacular discovery that ends you outputs. If you have not defined your collaborators and their roles from the outset, it will affect you. Then the resources that are available, whether physical or human resources, and then who owns the data? Are there cost and space limitation? All of this will affect your research question, and the number of data collection instruments that you're going to use, the people that are available to respond to your interview questions, the number of objectives that you're able to accomplish at the end of the day, and the number of your possible research outputs. And then we look at the research design and methodology. At this phase, you're making tactical decisions. You're looking at the practicalities of your study. The how of the study is now being considered. How will your research objective be achieved in order to answer your research question? So for scientists in the social sciences, they usually have research questions. So whatever you're doing, the goal is to be able to answer your research questions. And that is what your design and methodology is all about. So for methodology, we're talking about step-by-step activities that are carried out to implement a particular research method. It could be, if you're in the natural sciences, maybe you're going to do experimental work, or you're going to administer questionnaire if you are in the social sciences. And then the method, we're looking at the specific instruments that you use to collect data. Like interviews, is it going to be an interview? Is it going to be a questionnaire? The data collection, you have now designed the study. You are in the field out there to collect data. What kind of data? Is it a primary data, which is the one collected by you, the one gathered by you as a researcher, is the raw data, the primary data, which you obtain through experiments or questionnaires which you administered, or are you going to use the data from published articles of other researchers? In that case, we're talking about secondary data. We also have quantitative data, which are data that can be expressed in numerical form, like age, salaries, all of these. We have experiments and questionnaire, then qualitative data, like when you're trying to look at what people think about a particular thing or a process, people's behavior, people's thought process. You cannot quantify that numerically. So basically, you'll be doing an interview or a focus group discussion. And then we also have another type of data collection, methodological triangulation, which combines both of them. So each research method has its pros and cons. So you need to be aware of them and provide justification for whichever method you decide to use. Then when you have collected your data, whether quantitative or qualitative, you need to know the right statistical package to use in your analysis. For quantitative data, they're mostly analyzed statistically, while for qualitative data, you use content analysis. Then it's very important for you to store your data to avoid loss. I remember when I was collecting my data in the field, and I just had one of those times that I had students that came to assist me with the weighing of my broiler chickens, because I worked on broiler birds. So one of the students was moved to ask me, okay, so is this where you write your data down? I said, yes. Do you have a backup somewhere? I said, no. So what if something happens? Is it going to be the end of this research work? So that was when it dawned on me that I was taking a big risk. So it's very important to store your data very well. Okay, now you are finished collecting data, you've done everything. Now you need to write the research reporting. It's as demanding and challenging as the design and the data collection phase. So it's very important that you start early as soon as possible, and adopt continuous basis approach. Like you can write, depending on your ability, you can write every day, you can write every 2 days, but just make sure that every day you're doing something that adds up to the progress of your work. And be aware of writer's block and other challenges. There are days you will not be motivated. There are days you will not know what to write. There are days you may be stressed. You need to make provision for all of this to know how to address them. Then it's important to know the requirement, what is required in terms of the way you write thesis in your university, your department, your faculty. What is the format? What is the referencing style? What is the length? I remember writing my literature review chapter, and I wrote so much before I got to know that I shouldn't, and I had to let go of a lot of things. Then use only relevant literature that helps to answer your research question. Reference correctly, explain the underlying mechanism for your results, the results you obtain. Don't just say that your results agree or does not agree with previous reports. You must provide justification. First of all, explain the mechanism, and then make recommendations for future research. And like I will always advise, graduate students, it's very important for you to publish your work. Even if it's not required for you to graduate, there are some universities that do not require publication. It helps you to really know to know what you have done. It helps you when you go through that rigorous peer review process and you survive it, and your work is accepted and published at the end of the day. It boosts what you have done, you understand? So it's very important to publish your work before graduation, or if you're not able to do that after graduation. Then networking. A lot of time you find researchers from Africa having challenges with being able to do certain things, publishing in highly reputable journals because of the limitations that are peculiar to them. So how do you navigate this challenge? I think it can only be done through networking. If I'm a lecturer in a particular discipline and my colleague is in the same area of specialization with me, and we both have students, so why do we have to assign the student to do different things? Is it not better to pull our resources together, and then we assign the student to, maybe we divide the data we want to collect into different sections, and then we assign students based on that. So it really helps you, it helps lecturers to be able to do something meaningful. And then in the area of publishing your work collaboration is the order of the day. It's good to work hard, but working smart yields more results. You are in Nigeria or any other African country, and you're trying to publish in a reputable journal, but you're finding it difficult. There are colleagues outside your university that can assist you. So get in contact, know how to network. It really helps. And then maybe you have a particular data you want to collect, or a particular sample you've collected, and now you've gathered. Now you want to analyze it, but the facilities are not there. What do? There are opportunities or route to send your samples to institutions outside your university. So all of these are important if you have the right information. So with this, I end my presentation with the following quotes. If we knew what we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? According to Albert Einstein. Then research means that you don't know, but you are willing to find out. You don't know, but you're willing to find out. So that's basically what defines the life of a researcher. Thank you very much. I don't know how much of my time I've exceeded.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Akuru. And for our first presenter, you have done justice to the subject of today,